was about to take place that would shake the foundations of the civilized world.
It is time to open your mind. Time to discover your divine self as we navigate this holographic matrix together. Strap in, Cosmic Family, as we slide through this wormhole of cosmic information together in search of the truth.
The truth. You can't handle the truth.
It's time to go inside the matrix.
Inside the Matrix.
With your host, Jimi Brent.
All right, welcome everybody to Inside the Matrix. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And today we have back with us Thomas Williams, our friend that gives us regular updates on what's going on in the world. And Thomas, just when you think things couldn't get any wackier, what do we have, huh?
Chaos and bedlam, pretty much. You know, it's happening on all levels. Clown level, family level, Illuminati level for people who still deal with that name, which doesn't exist anymore. It's happening on a people level, on a government level, every level. It's happening in the alt media. That's going sideways rapidly, you know, because people haven't got themselves into balance.
Yeah.
And that's the gist of it, you know. You've got to be able to handle the frequencies that have changed. The dynamics have changed. The energies have changed. And everything's changed. But it's not your normal slap in the face change. It is on a frequency level. But, you know, people want verbal or written proof of it. you know, well, look around you and see, because it's all there. You know, you've got politicians turning up in Batwoman outfits to an impeachment hearing. I mean, if that's not completely off the tree, I don't know what is. And yet most people just ignore it. You know, and that's part of the problem is people don't connect the dots and see what's going on, and that's what we try to encourage in THI. Think for yourselves, you know, because it's all there. Everyone can now see that society is collapsing.
Yeah, it's all coming out. It's pretty obvious. There's a flood of information, and I guess you would say disclosure of every kind coming out.
Yeah, well, you got people in the ET community talking about when's ET disclosure. Well, you've already had it. You know, how many more times do you need to be told or shown? You know, and it's a secret. It's a secret that lots of people around the world know. So it's not really a secret, is it?
No.
You know, and this is part of the problem. The likes of, you know, for the likes of me and yourself who've been doing this a fair amount of time, it's all there. There is no conspiracy anymore. You know, what goes on in the church and the pedophilia, what goes on in government and fraud and all kinds of other things, it's all been out in the media. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
And the key is, what are you going to do with it? What happens next is one of the lines I like to say, and also Kim, you know, when she's talking with clowns. Okay, you've done this, so what happens next? And it's crickets. Because it's just people are focused on one certain thing. Let's just use ET disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they tell you for the 500 millionth time that ETs exist, because it's in all kinds of movies, it's in all kinds of documentaries, it's in the alt media and everywhere else, and books. What is that going to change? So now it's official that you know what you already know.
Yeah.
What's it going to change? Nothing.
That's true. That's very true.
Because the idea that they're going to come down, you know, with disclosure that they're going to come down, Well, that's what a lot of people don't understand, because if they were going to come to see us, they would come up, not down.
And not only that, if there was a race of beings that was going to come and help us, or save humanity, be our savior, they would have done it a long time ago. I don't think they would have let it get this far out of complete control of any kind. We're in dangerous territory, I think, and this year, 2020, I really think is so critical and could very well be a make or break year. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. There's certain things that have a strong possibility of taking place this year. Some are rather good, some are off the charts, and some can be quite dangerous. But it's all about what we do. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to, because you can remove this, that, and the other. But what the problem that most people have is, what are you going to replace it with? So we get rid of the dark. So everyone goes, okay, we'll replace it with the light. Fine. But what happens next? So now you've got a whole light planet. What are you doing to improve it? And this is where we need people to think more, not react to the headlines and the statements. Mass arrests, FISA documents are coming out. Okay, so you're going to get all the FISA documents, and what are you going to do with them? But what are you going to read them and go, oh my God, that one's done that one and that one's done that one? Well, you already know that. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change your life, is it?
Not at all.
If you throw all the politicians out, if you throw everyone out, Trump, Facelift Central, Pelosi, throw them all out, what happens next? Are you just going to allow other clowns out of Langley or the DHS or NSA to go in their place? Because it's not going to change, is it? It's the mindset that has to change. Mm-hmm. And we also have to step up and take responsibility.
Yeah, we have to become more involved as people in this nation. But unfortunately, it seems as though the vast majority of people are either just completely sound asleep, as they've always been, or they're too busy, or they're unwilling to take responsibility for what's going on. Because really, without our vigilance in watching what goes on in government, it gets to where it is today, and that's what's happened. Our great grandfathers, our grandfathers, our fathers, and us have fallen down and have not paid enough attention to what's going on. I mean, we can witness the incredible corruption in our Congress, all through the political spectrum, but incredible corruption from local to state to federal level, giant kickback schemes. And this is I think really what the crux of the argument is right now in Congress is against Trump, is that all these people have been riding the gravy train for so long. They've been making their kickback deals for so long, and now they see that's being threatened. And I really think that's why they pull out all the stops to try and keep that from, changing.
Yeah. Well, this is why they have no plan, because they can't control the plan. They've those what we would call the control system, whoever that level that may be, and some think they're a lot higher than they actually are. Some are so far down the system, it's not even funny. Well, it is funny, because it's funny from our perspective that they think they're top of the pyramid, and then you realise, well, actually there's 13 pyramids, and there's a whole heap of other structure above that as well. Mm-hmm. And and everyone has been bought off to keep the system of control running. For for the benefit of the one. And the one was only interested in collecting everything, which they gave to them. But they thought they were going to always be the head chosen ones, or the head this and head that. And what they're realising now, and should have realised long before, it's taken them 13 years to get a grasp of it, is they're just not that important. And so okay, carry on.
So who do we place, or who do you place? Who do you see at the top of the pyramid now? Or the top, who is in the top spot? And can you kind of give us an outline of the hierarchy of, basically what I call the evil-archy?
Well, in essence, the top spot is the trust.
Okay.
And that's what they don't like, because it's not them. That's the real top spot now. And they're having a great deal of difficulty getting a grasp of that. Well, why is this woman or this group telling us what to do? Well, we're not telling them to do anything. But if you're going to come to the trust to make deals or funding for individual countries or projects, you're going to do it in a fair and transparent way.
Which is directly against everything they've ever done.
And that's the whole gist of it. What do you mean? Well, exactly what we just told you. So that is the trust was always the head one. It's just that the trust is not in the hand of a dark psychopath now.
Thank goodness for that.
And so that is the head. Now, as regards of those clans, the head is between the Rothschild's clan and their connecting families and the Black Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like each other. But, you've heard about most of the Rothschilds have banks in every country apart from a certain select few.
Yeah.
Well, those banks are run by the Black Sun.
Like in Iran?
Yeah, like in Iran. And so now Rothschilds don't like the Black Sun, and the Black Sun doesn't like the Rothschilds. But what they don't get is neither of them are going anywhere, because you no longer have access to the funds or the treasures or the assets. So until they realise actually it's two created enemies with the illusion that they're fighting for whatever, but they're not fighting for any control, because there is no control to fight for. And this is what these people don't get. They're not in control anymore. And they're not going to be in control. There's plenty of funds and assets for everyone. And they've got to learn to share and not control everything.
That's a strange concept for them, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. But these people are weak. Most people think they're strong because they're the control system. No, anyone who controls anybody else, and this applies in marriages, if you've got a controlling partner, that's not based on love, that's based on weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've got to control another being, you're doing so from a point of weakness, not strength. And this is what these people are. They're all basically weak people with no inner strength.
But are they in fact human?
Some aren't, no.
That's what I've always felt, that there's got to be a huge chunk of them that aren't actually human.
Yeah, but we have enough psychopathic humans as well, weak psychopathic humans. The common theme is to blame somebody else. So it can't be the human, so it must be blah, blah. Well, no, that's, let's balance it out. There's enough psychopathic humans that even if you wipe out all the others, those idiots are always going to carry on. Why? Because they're weak. Mm-hmm. The agencies are stacked with weak people because they want to control everything as well. Why do you have to control anything?
Exactly.
They can't even control themselves. And this is the problem with society in general. There's people who want to control others that cannot control themselves. They've got no mastery over themselves. And so they just want to externally bully other people to make them feel strong. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's all an illusion. And this is what these people and non-people have to get. There's enough for everyone in this universe. This planet is a regenerating planet. Whether it's oil, gold, or whatever. There's technology that can make gold. You don't have to mine it. So why is everyone fighting over it? There's technology where we don't need oil. Why are people fighting over it? Why are people wanting to control it?
It's that's an excellent question, and you really have to ponder that to try and figure out. These people are just absolutely sick and twisted, because any decent human being, and there's plenty, they just aren't very active or very knowledgeable, but they don't have any desire to hold control over anybody else. And I think that's a very natural thing. People just want to live their lives, be happy. And I think a lot of people are genuinely really good people. They're just, been dumbed down, either don't have an interest in what's going on or don't have the time to look at it, or whatever the case may be. The most real humans are decent people. The question is, how do we communicate with those people?
Well, this is the idea behind THI. Yes, we have the intel, and there's a lot of the past history that's been proven and all that stuff. But the key aspect is to focusing on the psychology side, because we have to change the mindset. Mm-hmm. The two things I always repeat: need, not greed.
Yeah.
This old system is based on greed. They collect everything, and so there's nothing left or scraps left for the rest. Why does it have to be that way? Well, it doesn't.
Yeah, and I've got an example of that I've heard people talk about. If somebody is a hoarder, say some old guy in an apartment somewhere, and he's got newspapers and boxes and all kinds of stuff stacked up in his apartment where he can barely walk through anywhere because he's hoarding all this stuff. Well, that requires an intervention, right? They're going to send people in. They're just going to intervene in his life because obviously he's so out of it, right? But then you've got hoarders that are hoarding billions and trillions of dollars, which they will never need in 100 lifetimes, just because they can, when in fact that money could be put to use to, do the things that we know need to be done. It's just absolute insanity.
Yeah, well, it's based on fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the problem, is most of society is based on fear, not love. Because, I mentioned this recently, we have all kinds of insurance. Why do we have that? Well, some of them are compulsory, like the car insurance. But we go and buy life insurance, death insurance, and this insurance based on fear.
Oh, sure.
Of losing that, whatever we're insuring against, like a pension. That's based on fear that we're not going to have any funds when we're older. Mm-hmm. And so the whole thing is fear-based.
Absolutely.
And not love-based. You know, does Bezos sit there and go, I'm loving this 112 billion all day? Yeah, what are you going to do with it? What's the purpose? Amazon's the biggest company in the world.
Oh, keeping it from everybody else. That's what the purpose is.
Meanwhile, you've got 2 billion around the planet with no toilet. Over 3 billion who don't have 3 meals a day. 2 billion who don't have what you would call a home. Whilst he's sitting there with 112 billion. You know, that has to stop.
Yeah. And I've said this before, that wouldn't it be really great to be able to commandeer one of the major networks and start telling people the truth? Wouldn't that be an awesome thing? Because
well, look, I came up with the most simplest plan ever, and yet some people want to call it a scam. Given $1 a week or $1 a month, and it all goes to the people. It's like winning the lottery every week.
Yeah.
And yet, no, that's a scam. And yet you'll go and spend $5, $10 on the lottery, which is a scam. It's another tax.
Yeah. A harvesting system.
Yeah.
It's just like all the other taxes.
None of it goes back to the people. It's just another tax. So if it's not going back to the people, it's a tax. And yet people just go along with it.
That reminds me, there was a quote that I found a few years ago from a former head of the IRS, and I think it was around 1946 or so. And basically, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of, I don't understand why we still have the IRS and an income tax system because of the fact that banks can create money out of thin air. So why do we need to tax the people? And I'm sure that wasn't a very popular thing to say, but it's absolutely true.
Yeah, and here we are 70, 80 years later, and it's still ongoing.
Yep.
You know, we wrote, between the team and I, a whole new tax code. It doesn't need income tax. It's illegal anyway under the Constitution.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm not telling people for 1 second to not pay their taxes, because under the current system, you're going to get jailed. Now, if a whole town or the whole city decides, you know what, we're not paying it, what are you going to do? Arrest everyone?
Yeah, that's why we have to come together to get things accomplished.
And that's what changes everything. Everyone doesn't have to agree on everything, but agree on the important parts of it, and we all go forward as well. Because all this divide and conquer, I don't like this colour and I don't like that religion, etc., hasn't worked for the people.
That's right. Thomas, we're ready to Inside the Matrix with our guest today, Thomas Williams. And we were just talking on the break about some of the antics that go on with these controllers, and it just really cracks me up. But anyway, before we get back into that, I wanted to give a special shout out to the THI family and anybody that might be listening live or on the replay. So special shout out to you guys. I hope you're all doing well. Thomas, there's some crazy antics among the world controllers these days when they're beginning to figure out that it's not business as usual anymore.
No, it's not. And it never will be either. It's not their time. It's not their timeline either, which they're beginning to understand. They can try their portal games and all kinds of other shenanigans and fancy technology. And what they're finding, much to their chagrin, is none of it works. You know, perhaps they should listen a bit more rather than attempting to buck the system, which is ironic, is it not?
Well, I think in their minds they've gotten away with it for so long. They just can't fathom the idea that maybe that power is beginning to slip through their fingers.
No, it's got to go back to the people, all of the people. It's not about Kim. It's not about me. It's not about anyone else who's involved with the trust. It's about us all coming together and developing the species. That's the top and bottom line of it. We are children in universal level terms. We're actually children on a planetary level, never mind universal, because we don't think properly. And we've got to become adults of this planet to then be able to go out on a universal level.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to end the divide and conquer. We've got to end other people controlling other people. We've got to end a lack of care for and by the people that's administered for by the people. We don't care for each other enough. We've also got to take a lot more responsibility, personally and collectively.
Mm-hmm.
People tend to forget. One or two questions my statement I made in the show when I said all Americans that didn't complain about the war are responsible for 1.6 million Iraqi deaths. A lot of people didn't like that statement, but it's a fact. Well, that was the government, but you put them in because we have automatically dissolved our responsibility. It doesn't matter which country you're in. We've dissolved our responsibility and let that government go so far off track, it's not even funny anymore. It doesn't even, ignore them that it's a corporation. But even as a corporation, there's supposed to be rules and laws that apply, which clearly it doesn't. It's like a free-for-all.
It is.
And so we've allowed that. We cannot just sit back and go, that's Pelosi's fault, that's Clinton's fault, that's Trump's fault, whoever you follow. No, it's the people's fault for allowing it. Because we all sat back and go, we've done our part, we've done a little tick box every 2 to 4 years. And we are handing over our responsibility to them to fix our world. Really? Who made suddenly them become the world fixers when they're not even capable of running their own lives, never mind anybody else's? And so at some point, the people are going to have to step up and fill in those roles in the government and a phase shifting, some the bad guys out and some good guys in, and hope that they don't fall for the old program. And the only thing when it works well is if it's in balance, where the people, the government is run for and by the people, and the people are supporting the government, not working against them. Essentially, the government has become the classic blame culture. It's him, it's her, it's this party, it's that party.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's the mirror again. Look in the mirror, because it's actually you. Because you're responsible for the country's ills. And yes, there's certain aspects that go beyond people's control. But a body of people, if we're talking about the old 99 and 1%, are you telling me 99% can't overpower 1%? That's where people have to think. Because there's been examples in the past where the people have got together as a collective and stopped the system running that operation.
Well, we see signs of it in different countries. I know France is still, there's plenty of people hitting the streets there trying to do something about some of the stuff that goes on there. And I admire those people that are able to get out there and, at least try their best to make something happen for the people.
I remember saying on a Cosmic Voice show, so it's over at least 4 years ago now, that if it's going to start in Europe, it'll be in France. Because for some reason, those people will sacrifice their lifestyle. They'll take 2 days off work with no pay, whereas most of the rest of the countries won't. They'll play Internet Warriors, which has a role, but it's a small role. It's not the role. They will sacrifice. They will get all the truckers together, and they all drive a mile an hour down the interstate, or the motorway, as they call it over there. And it just blocks all the traffic.
I think that's great. And have you heard any new things about what's going on in Hong Kong?
That's not what people think. That's more game playing and power structure in their world, not ours. There's a lot of input from certain agencies in the UK into that.
Gee, what a surprise. Yeah, and what you're saying about, we've got to stop, fighting each other and being divided into groups. That's such a huge part of their game, is that they have this ability, because we've allowed them to split us up into all these different groups: Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, male, female, race against race. It's just everything. And it really needs to be good and evil, because that's really what it boils down to. And to me, that's the bottom line of what we're up against. Do we want goodness for all the people? And we have this whole moral relativism too, where you've got people operating that think that are totally convinced that you can do evil for the greater good. That's okay. That's okay somehow. They can rationalize that. And that kind of relative morality is really, just perpetuating all the crap that we're having to deal with.
Well, you've got the old, what was known as Illuminati. It went just over a decade ago. What did he call it? They are illuminated. They are the light. Lucifer is the light of the morning. So their perception is that their light, as we understand it in our terms, they're doing good.
Yeah.
The problem with them is they're out of balance. Not only is the light out of balance, the dark's out of balance. And they have to, they've gone so far down the dark path, they don't even know what they're doing anymore. They literally have no clue. Now, they'll laugh at me and tell me that, but then I'll turn around and say to them, their manifesto stated that they want to eliminate all life. That's the order of the Black Sun. They want to eliminate all life.
That includes them.
Yeah. Because they'll go on in some non-corporeal form, they think. No, you don't understand life. And it's the same with what is called the Jewish religion. It's not. It's Anunnaki. That they want the whole planet wiped out, and only them are going to survive because they're the chosen ones.
Oh, this programming.
So, for the benefit of those clowns that are listening, and I know they're listening. So let's say that happens. We have a planet catastrophe and only the Jewish people survive. What happens next? What are they going to do? Who's going to do all the dirty work? Because they won't, because that's down to the Goyim, remember? Who are they going to collect loads of money off? Nobody. There's only the Goyim provide the labour, which creates the life force energy, which we call pieces of paper with numbers on. Who are they going to harvest then? And this is where a lack of thinking comes in.
Absolutely. And, you know, you've said so many times that the Jewish people of this world, especially in Israel, are some of the most used and abused people there are, because
Absolutely.
they've been sold this whole dog and pony show, you know,
Yeah,
and it's to their detriment too.
It's the same on all levels, you know. Mnuchin thinks he's the chosen one. Personally, I think I would just rearrange the letters and call him Munchkin, because that's about his level. You know, Kim and I, more Kim than I, I've met about 54 different Jesus reincarnations. I'm not joking. You know, well, what are you doing? Chasing RVs? Do you really think Jesus would chase a currency revaluation? Lack of thinking. And so people in general will fall for the seducement. And some have a low price and some have a high price and some have none.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've mentioned in previous shows, we were offered $2 billion to walk away. Now, there's a lot of people who would have took it. You know that as well as I do.
Absolutely. There's a Congress full of them.
Yeah. You know, and there's people who listen to this show who probably would have took it. But what are the consequences?
It's called selling your soul.
So, which is why all these fake actors and actresses and musicians have got lots of money and lots of pieces of paper, and they all have these fancy awards where they all dress up and pat each other on the back and give them each other nice little trinkets to keep them distracted.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the military with their medals, right?
Yeah. Badges for killing people.
Yeah. Who's the greatest killer? Oh, let's give him a badge. Let's give him a ribbon. This guy.
And people think that's an honor.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because we don't think enough that people accept that statement. Well, I got this Purple Heart or this because I killed so many Japanese, Chinese, Russians or whatever. Did those Japanese, Russians, Iranians, Iraqis do anything to your family for you to want to attack them? And you get silence. No, you followed a stupid program.
Just following orders.
That's why they're called soul dyers, not soul. It's soul dyers. It's a harvesting program. And you know, America's got a big problem because we've got thousands of American soul dyers dotted all around the world, and none of them can come back because it would create a national security issue.
Well, absolutely. And then we've got so many of them now are on police forces that have PTSD and all kinds of other ailments, and they take it out on the people. We see it all the time.
Yeah, that's why you're seeing a lot of veterans homeless. They can't readapt to society. They've been too damaged. So imagine bringing them all home, which I've said in previous shows until I found out the real problems. You know, Trump wants to bring them home because it gets nice brownie points for the vote.
Sounds good.
This year. Yeah. But realistically, it can't happen. And that's why I put forward the solution in the show is we build hospitals to bring them home and see which ones can be helped sufficiently to be reintroduced back into society. And it's not a short-term program. You're not talking about giving a few tablets here and there. That's not going to work. This is a psychological end goal to breakdown program.
Yeah, because it's all kinds of trauma will shatter the psyche.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's very difficult to put it back together. And a lot of these so-called elite are in that same boat. You know, they belong to these satanic groups, and they actually put their children up to be psychologically abused in that way so that they continue the same system that they're involved in.
Yep. They shatter empathy, compassion, love.
Yep. Just get rid of all that stuff and go on with the program.
In essence, they're not human.
Exactly.
Because those traits are inherent to this human.
Yes.
This version of it.
So it's a formidable challenge we have, Thomas.
Well, that's why I did those pieces in October and repeated it in part 5 of the review. What is life? Because people haven't defined it. They think getting by week to week is living. No, it's not. That's not living at all. Where you have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, just to have the 5 basics in life. That's not living either.
No.
That's existing in a slavery program.
Absolutely.
You know, what is love? Have we defined it? Well, most people don't understand it because they've been taught love by a marketing program. No, it's a frequency. And there's a difference between love, lust, and sex.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what is human? Have we really defined that? Well, no, we haven't.
But I think we all know, though. We all know that being a human involves having a conscience, having the ability to have empathy and compassion for people, having love for other people, wanting to be of service to other people. Those are all human traits in my mind.
Yeah.
And we see a lot less of that. Thomas, do you think there ever has been a society, a culture, or a civilization in this world that had those qualities?
Yes.
And if so, what happened to them? It seems to me that maybe this is cyclical. Maybe humanity rises up and then the dark side rises up and squashes us down like little bugs, like we're seeing kind of now.
If the Rus were allowed to continue, we wouldn't be here now.
And they've done their best to squash that out of history and remove it from the history books, right?
The planet wouldn't be in a low vibrational state. It would have gone into the higher vibration. The astral wouldn't have existed. And the people, this particular vessel wouldn't be on this planet now. You know, that's the sad aspect. And the dark forces aligned with weak extraterrestrial groups. You make look strong and based on size and their weaponry, but inside they're weak, like the Draco.
Mm-hmm.
Piss weak they are.
How involved are they at this point?
Not as much, but the problem is now is they laid out a program and people still follow programs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like there's aspects, you know, the Draco beings, 80% were sick of the old system and they wanted, there was a lot of them that were happy when Anu went. probably more of theirs were happy than ours were, because not a lot of people know about who Anu is. You've all read about him because he's called the Lord in the Bible. Oops.
Yeah, and I urge anybody who hasn't heard the From Russia with Love series on Thomas's YouTube channel to go check it out, because there's so much information in there. And I think it sheds a lot of light on our history, what has happened, and what is happening now.
So the Queen turned up at the top level meetings of the Order, what's known as the Order, and told them the old program of destroying the planet and the people is now over. That's not happening. And
wow.
This is the new way. We're going with a full restoration of the planet. So she is supportive of the work.
Really?
That we're doing with the trust, yes.
I think that should have been headline news somewhere.
It should have been. But those clowns essentially all stood there and said, "All hail Marduk." Yeah, well, that turned out well for them, didn't it?
Oh, that's pretty wild. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. Once again, time is flying by, Thomas. We're coming up against the break, so we're going to take a short pause right here. And before we took the last break, Thomas, you'd brought up about the Draco Queen and her change in direction there somehow. And I think that's amazing to me. Could you speak a little more about that?
Yeah, it's not the Queen of England, as some may think. No, it's one of the Draco family members that is connected to the old people, the Marduks and Anus, and it's one of their own beings. She, every now and again, these upper level elites, none of which people would know the names of. The names are all in the bottom 25%. They have these ritual events, sacrifice events, and all kinds of other fun and games. And Marduk used to turn up, and they would get contracts and assets or things, trinkets to keep them occupied. Well, those events are now not wielding the same riches that it did in the past. And it's dwindled down to nothing because they don't control it anymore. Now, the direction of the Draco beings is 80% of them were sick of the old system. They've been warring for millions of years. They've lost loads of their own kind. And they wanted a change of direction. And actually, I would say the rejoicing of the end of Anu was probably received more on their world than it was on ours. They were tired of the old ways. And so they appointed the Queen, which is still from the same families that people are familiar with, but they want to go in a different direction.
Well, that's good news for humans, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Anu promised all kinds when he was addressed. I gave him a load of questions going back in 2015, and he promised certain things, and he didn't deliver, and carried on playing the old games of we own and control everything. Well, after 2016, when that peace treaty was signed, that was the end. And that's why the bulk of them left in 2015. And there was and a few others of his minions still left here as what they would say was a part punishment to him. Well, we were paying the consequences of his punishment. And she told them all in that meeting that the program of the destruction of Earth and all its people and the beings inside of it is now over. And you are to partake in the full restoration of the Earth along with the trust. And unfortunately, a lot of them all stood there and go, all hail Marduk. So it didn't go down too well. See, well, this is the problem of people. Whilst the off-world, and this has been addressed to the council, whilst the off-world are no longer interfering, the programs are still running. Mm-hmm. And people who have single-digit brain cells are following it.
That's a good way of putting it. But yeah, it's just like a computer that's got an old floppy disk in the drive that's just running this same old program from 40 years ago, and until somebody pulls that out of the floppy drive and puts in a new CPU and a new hard drive with new programs, it's still going to perpetuate in the same way.
Yeah, some of them have floppy disks on the top of the head. Perhaps they need some Viagra. Okay,
I think I asked you this before a little while ago, but I want to ask you again. The Rus, that's the root of Russia, the name Russia, and a civilization that had achieved some greatness at least.
Yeah.
And how many survived?
Some survived, but then some fled as well, and some came back. When the war that took place 110,000 years ago, a lot of them fled, and some obviously came back because they were still active 7,500 years ago in the first venture into the Garden of Eden, which was in India. It was called Dravidia then. And then they made another escapade 5,000 years ago. And after that, when the Egyptian crew came in, cult of Ra, everything changed after that. So they went underground and away, and some came back.
So what are they up to now?
Restoring it with the teachings of the way it used to be.
I like that.
These they were taught by the Ers, which is why you've got places in Russia called the Urals, the Ural Mountains, and there's lots of other examples. There's also the place called Jerusalem, which is the original Jerusalem, which is transient. It's not a fixed place in the so-called state of Israel. And at that time, there was we would call them now gateways, or the stargates. They were called celestial needles back then, and they were lit up. You could see them in the sky. And we were connected with Leo, Orion, and the Ursa Minor and Major system, which is where the Ers came from.
Interesting.
And they are what is known as the Great White Race. That's not meant as a racist term or to discount other colours. That was what they are. That is what they're called. And the reason they were called that is because they, on an evolutionary scale and a soul development level, they were way ahead of anyone else. Way ahead. Where technology came from within. It wasn't an external machine. So the people had developed to such a high point that they didn't need technology external. It was all internal. And that's essentially what we're trying to do, is to get back that level of soul progression. And that's why I said if the Rus were allowed to carry on, we wouldn't be here now. And I don't mean that in a negative way. We would be in a much better space. Sure.
So does that have anything to do with the Great White Brotherhood?
There's elements of that, but then names, and more names. It gets confused as it goes further down the line. It's like Baal and Ra. Well, Marduk played both. You know, and then you've got the Lord, who is Anu, who also played Ra. You know, and you've got all the Greek and Roman gods. It's the same people. It's just a different epoch of time.
Yeah, and they live these very, very, very long lives. And since we have these relatively short lives, you know, it's easy for them to, you know, maintain their systems and reprogram a whole new batch of generations as they come along. And then over time and sequence of events, people forget who they are, where they came from, and what happened, what didn't happen. And
you know, look at the Bible. Adam lived to 900 and something. Is that a normal human? Noah, similar. And then all the other names, Ham and Shem and all this, that's wrapped up into the Hebrew nonsense. And it is nonsense because it's not our story, it's theirs. And so just people don't, this is what goes back in the first part, people don't think. They'll just read words and go, well, hang on a minute, how come Adam and Noah and Moses, which is a title, not a name, wasn't a single person. Moses is a title. How are these people living near 1,000 years or more? No one asks the question. Merlin was another one, 900 years. Nobody asks the question. And that's how they get away with putting out whatever they like. You know, they call us conspiracy theorists, but then they're putting in the Bible that someone lived to 900 years old. and no one asks the question. You know, and this is where we have to think better. It's like, you know, I get a fair bit of flack from religious people, and I understand that because they're in a program. They don't realize it's a program, and I do understand it. But my stock answer back is, you go to your doctor says and tell them you're walking along the road and a bush went on fire and started talking to you, and then a snake came and started talking to you. Oh, and by the way, I've thrown my children out of the house because they ate an apple when they told them not to. And see how far you get. You're going to get locked up. And yet there's billions of people following that narrative and not looking at it and going, does that make sense? You know, has anyone ever seen someone walk across the Mississippi without drowning or sinking? No. But in this book, everything, magic happens, and people live to 900 years, and people don't question how did that happen then and not now?
Or did it happen then and not now?
You could ask that question as well. That then gets people thinking on the subject.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just following the narrative. Well, that's what it says in the book. Well, who wrote the book? Well, God did. How? God has no form. How can it write a book? And this is where it then it breaks down. You know, what I know is that religion was a grand experiment to take people away from source.
Absolutely.
And worship idols which is a false image. Go and have a look at the etymology of the word idol. Star, image, it's all the same. Mirror. Mirror is a copy. It's not the original. And that's what happened. And then, of course, they brought in the divide and conquer programs, because Christianity came out of Hebrew, Islam came out of Christianity, and it all goes back to the same thing. And yet we've got people arguing, my God's better than your God.
Exactly.
But it's all the same. But it's not actually your God.
Yep.
Your real God is inside of you.
That's right. And when we look outside of ourselves for those things, that's where we go wrong. These are all mind boxes, I call them. For you can stick your mind in this box, and then you have all the prefabricated answers that you need, all the so-called spiritual teaching. So you don't have to think for yourself. You can just buy into a belief system box, place yourself in it, and there you go, happily ever after.
Yeah. And it's also disempowering. Mm-hmm. That's what it's doing, is disempowering people. And it doesn't matter which religion you are, they're all fake. Sorry. But it is what it is. When you start asking rational questions based on the narrative that's being put forward, it doesn't make sense.
Oh, it all falls apart.
It all falls apart. But the people are that tightly wrapped into that program, it's difficult to shake it loose. And yet they'll dismiss what is classed as a theory, conspiracy or otherwise, automatically.
Mm-hmm. Well, because they're programmed to do that too.
People in the alt media have been telling them the governments are all corrupt. People have been telling them it's not actually a government. No, that's a conspiracy theory. Now, if they had the same dismissive attitude towards the so-called Bible books, then perhaps we might get somewhere.
Yeah.
You've got 4 billion people believing in religion, and we're told it's all very morally good. Well, why is the planet a mess then? If 2/3 are following religion, or 80-90% are following a religion, why is the planet in such a mess? Well, it's all about morals and good things.
Because it's not, when it comes down to, my God is better than yours.
No, it's not. It's a disempowering, harvesting, divide and conquer program.
Yep. We see it everywhere.
And this is why we focused on the Talmud. It's not against the Jewish people, but they have to see for themselves the Talmud in its pure form is completely anti-human.
Mm-hmm.
Who does that benefit? Do you think it's going to benefit them? No. Humans are beasts. So we'll educate them. And education means training animals. Really? It's all there in the words.
It is. There's some really disgusting things in that book.
Well, the worst one is a boy of 9 years and 1 day and a girl of 3 years and 1 day are considered filthy and can be used for sex.
That's what I'm talking about. It's terrible.
Go and check it out for yourself. It's all there.
Yeah, I have. It's awful.
What human thinks that way? And should that be considered a religion? It's certainly not a nice God, is it?
No, but I guess if you think of yourself as one of the chosen and that you're the chosen people, it seems to be somewhat easy to just sort of write everybody else off that way.
Yeah, well, if they're that chosen, and let's assume the 6 million figure is correct, let's call it 20 million. Why didn't their Lord or God come down and save them out of the concentration camps?
Yeah.
Why didn't their Lord or Yahweh or whatever else four-letter name they want to call it, Adonai, why didn't they come down then and save them from being thrown out of 106 countries in the last 2,000 years? Why didn't their Lord come down 7,500 years or 5,000 years and stop them being thrown out of the Garden of Eden? There you go.
Yeah. The problem with that is you have to think to get the answer. A lot of people don't want to go there.
No. And yet these people are waiting for mass earth destruction so that they're the only ones left.
Not a good plan.
No. You know, did they ask the question again? This is in the Talmud. It says when the Messiah returns. And remember, they're the only ones that are going to be left. And it says every Jew will have 2,800 slaves each. But I thought you were going to. But I thought you were going to wipe them all out. Again, lack of thinking.
That's kind of like the Islamic 72 virgins thing, right? So what are you going to do with those virgins when you don't have a body anymore? Yeah, it's hilarious, really. When you, yeah, on one level it's hilarious. On another, it's tragic. It's tragic.
It's tragic because
horrible.
It's caused millions, if not billions, of deaths
and suffering.
And suffering. You know, you've got the Catholic Church with, well, they used to have vast amounts of wealth, and yet the majority of Catholics living in poverty. I thought they were there to do good. No. You're deluding yourselves. They're there to harvest you. And that's why they ask you to pray. And you think it's P-R-A-Y when it's actually P-R-E-Y. You are their prey. You are giving them your life force energy.
That current Pope has said some crazy stuff, and it just doesn't seem to faze anybody. You know, he's come out and said all kinds of crazy stuff, and nobody bats an eye that's Catholic. I think I've seen one nun come out and really just say he's the devil, or we need to just stay away from him and do away with it, or that's it.
Well, the last three popes, one was a gun runner for the junta, one sold cyanide to the Nazis, and one was a Nazi. Oops,
there you go. And who knows what they've got in those Vatican archives? I'd like to run around there and check that stuff out.
You know, the Pope said one of the most extraordinary things in probably the last 2,000 years, that Jesus wasn't born on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
It was only 6 years ago.
And,
why are we still doing Christmas? If it was about Jesus, why are we still doing it?
Yeah, it's not.
He wasn't born on Christmas. He wasn't born on December the 25th.
I think it's more about Saturnalia and things like that.
All your holy days are pagan festivals and rituals. September 11th, pagan ritual. Oops. Sacrifice by fire.
Yeah.
May Day, another one.
Pretty nasty stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the third segment's flown by again, Thomas. So we're going to take another short pause. Anybody that has any questions, pop them in the chat. We'd be happy to talk with you, with our special guest, Thomas Williams. And I'm going to stick my neck out on a limb just a little bit here and predict that 2020 is going to be remembered as the year that it really began in earnest to turn around, and the beginning of the downfall of the evilarchy. We've seen the seeds of it for a long time, but I think this is going to be a pivotal year, and I'm predicting, we'll see next year if it comes true, but I'm predicting that this is going to show the beginning of the end of the evilarchy.
in essence, they've already gone. They're living in their own illusion bubble world. Because they're not controlling anything. The perfect example, some people say to us, where's the proof of the trust, or where's the proof of this, that, and the other? But they don't think and link one thing to another. And the classic example is Bitcoin. Same thing. Fresh air tokens. The sheer concept of that boggles my mind, that you give your life force energy, which is transferred into fiat money, which is false money, pieces of paper, and then you go and buy fresh air on some Chinese elder's computer on the other side of the world, and they're going to look after it for you. And yet they call some people say ask them for $1 a week or a month is a scam. Oh dear. The comparisons are just beyond extraordinary.
It is. And just the fact that, it's so volatile, you should clue people in on it, that this is another Ponzi scheme.
Well, let's get into where that originated from. Like encryption. People think, we'll use encryption, phone calls and emails, except it was developed by Langley. Oops. Mm-hmm. So you don't think they're going to put back doors in it, because there's back doors in everything. Phones, you name it, home security. The crypto was created by the CIA and the NSA, along with the clowns who thought they were going to be clever by hacking this week. Yes, we know who you are in San Francisco and Palo Alto. You will be dealt with. Mark my words. So they created Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. What does that tell you on an overview thinking aspect?
That the current system is falling apart.
Exactly. So that then proves that the trust is what it's said it is. That they are creating a new currency because they don't control the old one or the original one. It's that simple. That's why the IMF and the Bank of England and all the other clowns are telling people to go to crypto. That tells you they're not in control of it. Why would they need a new currency if they still controlled all of the old one?
Exactly.
Well, clearly they don't. And we know they don't. We know the banks are somewhere in the region of 400 to 600+% in negative liquidity currently. All of them. And yeah, they want to do deals, but they want to control it. No. We'll do a deal with any bank. But then if we bail you out this time, the people own your bank, not you. The deal's there. It's on the table for every bank. You either collapse, and you're all on the point of that. We know that. You're messing with figures, or think you're messing with figures, but we see the real ones. You can either collapse and no bank, or you can continue your bank and the people will run it. Because it's coming out of the people's fund. Some people will go, I don't want, that's not right, bailing the banks. Well, they already did that 12 years ago in 2008. No one complained, or very few did. When they bail people out, it's always your money, because people have
exactly.
People have forgotten. Banks don't have any money. They have our money. Governments don't have any money. They have our money. Not theirs, ours. And so that way we can change the way the banks operate. and away from the harvesting systems. That's all it is. The bank is a harvesting system.
Absolutely.
And we'll put it back into a cooperative where every person, if it's an American bank, it's owned by the American people, and every person in America has a share in that bank. And so the ownership of everything is divided equally amongst the people, which is not the way they want it. Well,
oh, heck no.
Well, they'll just have to get over themselves. You know, they've all lived the high life at our expense. Now it's time to reverse it back. We're not asking them to be destitute like they left us. They will get funds, providing they fly straight and act in the right manner. If they're going to use the funds to damage the people, we will be aware of it very, very quickly, and we'll take the money back. But we've proven that now. They thought they could steal the money again this week. Wrong. We can track it anywhere around the world and below the world and off the planet and out of the universe as well. They think they can go that far, and we'll just pull it all back. So if you're not going to use it for the right purposes, we will find out and we will pull it back. It's that simple. So that's the way. That's the deal with the banks. You want to come and speak to us? We'll bail your bank out, but it will belong to the people.
I love that. That's the way it should be. We've got a question for you, Thomas, from the chat room. The question is, will Kim's system, I'm assuming they're referring to the trust, also monitor the state and local government systems on their corruption issues?
Yes, it does. It controls all the intelligence agencies as well, and the military.
Yeah.
It's the military and intelligence systems are housed within the KIMS system, which is the key system, key integrated monetary system. But it's not just a monetary system.
Well, everything has to be integrated in that way, I would say, including the media. The governments, corporations. I mean, all of it has to be integrated into a moral system. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It has to be across the board in every aspect, of our society and culture.
Well, this is why I said it. Kim said it'll take 40 years, and I agree. Because you have to teach a young generation a different way, non-competing. Why do we have to compete? Why do you have to put so many people out of jobs just because your company has to be the biggest or bestest? Really?
That's the mindset of the programmers, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then what people don't realize is most of the corporations are contained within one unit and a very select few people. So you think that, well, Sony's competing with Samsung, and they're all owned by the same people, and they're all psychopaths, like Bezos. You have to be a psychopath to sit with 112 billion in the account and have 3 billion people starving.
Absolutely.
His wealth alone will feed the whole planet for the next 11 years. Everyone. And the 4 or 7 below him? I think it was 4 below him would add another 10 years. So you could feed everyone for the next 21 years on the top 5 people's wealth.
Yep. It's called hoarding.
It's called fear. And ego. You go back to the military. Are you going to collect badges for killing people, or are you going to collect badges for caring for people? Which do you want to do?
And it's interesting, if you pose it to them that way, I think the vast majority would say, well, of course, we want to do good things for people. And they don't understand that what they've been doing is just the opposite for so long.
No. So one of the solutions that I put forward on the show was the Air Force cleared up the air, which is would involve chemtrails, even though most people are immune to them, no matter what the clowns and the alt media tell you. You know, they've been gone for 30, 40 years and we're all still here. So clearly it doesn't work the way some people say it does. The Navy can clean up the oceans and the Army can clean up the land. So you've got a lot of people who are damaged with drugs and programming and also karma. Now suddenly, if we used, say, the Navy, and we could use the Air Force as well, and we transport volumes of food and basic essentials to, let's just say, the African people, and they're responsible for delivering it. The karma and the psychological aspect of those soul dyers is going to change drastically. And so the US military, which has been the death and destruction army for the past 70 years, is suddenly coming and helping people, not killing them.
What a concept.
So instead of being cowards, because war is cowardly now when you're flying at 30,000 feet and dropping bombs on people who can't fight back. That's cowardly. They can drop supplies and food and medicines and homes in packs for those people who don't have them. Big shift. Just a change in mindset. You can still all have your funding and budget. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous. They're getting $987 billion a year. For what?
To line the pockets of the nasties out there running these corporations.
For clowns who want to weaponize everything. Because they're that stupid, they can't think. You can make the same amount of money, if that's your be-all and end-all, on caring for people. Kim will give you your 987 billion, but we want you to go around the world and fix the mess that you caused. All of it. And provide the people of Africa and the people of India with proper homes, food, jobs and security. Not poverty, harvesting, death and destruction.
But people who have abundance are a lot harder to control, aren't they, Thomas?
Well, their abundance is vanishing into thin air very, very rapidly, because that whole control system that they're all operating in, thinking this one's a boogeyman and this one's a boogeyman. No, you're all a boogeyman. You just haven't realized it yet.
Well, what I was thinking is that if we have the capability of leveling the playing field with these people, they're not going to like it, because it's going to mean that we're much harder to control than we've ever had been. When we have people that are starving and just scratching in the dirt trying to survive from day to day, those people are no threat to anybody. You know, they're just trying to live. But if you get people that have shelter, have food, have clothing, have all the things that they need, then there's time to do other things like think.
Yeah. Develop the soul, develop the self.
Yeah.
But what people don't understand on this planet is there is no threat. You know, we had the Cold War. It was fake. The KGB and Langley have been working together since 1940s. Oops. Working together. So that all that nonsense, oh, we can't tell the Russians this and can't, it's rubbish. It's just create two enemies and tell each other that they don't like you and you don't like them.
Yep. That fear-based divide and conquer has worked like a charm for them.
You know, Russians doesn't need American technology. There's been technology there for tens of thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need American technology or ideas. It's all illusion. So that there is no threat and there is no enemies. That's all the old system and the old program. And when people suddenly realise that, and we all come together and start fixing this planet for the betterment of everyone, then we're going to really make giant strides.
Mm-hmm.
You're always going to have bad people. You know, not everyone's going to be love and light and let's all sing Kumbaya like Pratt's, you know, which is calling on the Lord. Because that's what Kumbaya is. It's calling him Lord Anu. Oh dear. It doesn't work that way. It has to be balanced. You have to have the dark to realise you're operating in the light. But it's not balanced.
Do you mean to tell me that the blue chicken people aren't going to come down and save us?
No. They're off there clucking heads. I'm sorry. Blue chickens.
Oh.
You know,
my.
That's fallen apart now. Mr. Wilcock, as forecast on our show going back 2017, would throw Corey under the bus. And he is. Someone needs to, well, there's enough people now. His figures are collapsing. And I'm glad people are seeing through the illusion of Wilcock, who sold out a long, long time ago.
Yeah, and it's just he spreading more hopium for the Love and Light group.
You know, again, you've got a lot of people who allegedly, you know, you can never take the figures correctly, was the fiddling them all to promote their people. You know, he told people that he was ascending 8 years ago, well, just over 7. And yet he's still around telling people that it's happening, this, and the mass arrests, which he's been telling people since 2002. The mass arrests are happening. He was on the Skolnick report under the pseudonym of Art Aqua.
Oh, just like that Sheldon Idle character.
18 years ago, Wilcock was talking about mass arrests and ET disclosure. You would think after 18 years that people work out that none of his predictions have came true. It's a bit like Drake and his 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, and
one day he'll be right.
And one the financial reset next week.
Yeah, no, that's every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Just tomorrow. Hold on for another day.
Yeah, tomorrow. Oh dear. You know, 13 years of tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got people with badges of dishonour on their shoulder. You know who you are, sitting with pallets of dinars that are never going to revalue. They're going to go up and smoke. But it was never real to begin with. And the Rothschilds did you all a favour by calling you jackasses.
It's sad, really.
His words, not mine. I have far more descriptive terms for your stupidity. But, you know, 13 years of the same promise. The currencies are going to reevaluate. And then the IMF steps in and goes, we're not going with currencies anymore, we're going with fresh air tokens. And yet these generals didn't think, ooh, if they do that, that means all our dealers are going to go up and smoke. Mm-hmm. No, they didn't think of that.
It's crazy.
So This is what we're dealing with. And sanity has to prevail. No one will go short. But you need to get off your fake high horse and come and meet us as equals. We don't see, or Kim doesn't see herself above anybody else, even though she is, by security clearance and also the owner of the trust. Kim's there to disperse the trust equally, not to control anyone, not to create all kinds of fake titles and I'm this and I'm that. Not interested. Neither of us are.
You got to love those generals parading around with the whole jacket full of medals and ribbons. It just cracks me up when I see that.
It should have on it. Maybe then people will say, this badge is because I killed 10,000 Iraqis. This badge is because I killed 5,000 Afghanistan people.
Mm-hmm. Puts it in perspective.
Because that's exactly what those badges mean.
Yep.
It may not be what they want to hear. Well, I know it's upset a lot of people. Why? Because they didn't think of it in those terms. We should be giving badges so we can give them lots and lots of nice, shiny badges if they go and care for people.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, we're getting real close to the end of the show once again. It always flies by. We always have so much to talk about. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Truth, Honor and Integrity on the Facebook, and also MeWe, the Tommy Williams channel, YouTube channel, thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org is the website. And we also have the foundation, thepeoplesclub.org also.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Thomas, once again for joining us. You've been listening to Inside the Matrix. Come back and visit with us very soon. And all of you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.